Welcome back to the Rebuild series. I'm Jessie and this is Stray With Me. If you haven't seen the first episode, I will link that somewhere here so that you can go watch it and catch up. Honestly, that last one was probably a little bit boring compared to what's coming, but if you want to see kind of where I started, that's a good place to start. Just to remind everyone, my build is done, which is why I'm sitting in this corner so that you can't really see what else is out, what the rest of the build looks like. So feel free to still leave your constructive feedback in the comments so that someone can learn from my mistakes if you know better than me. But if you're aiming it at me, then it's nothing can be done at this point. So thank you. So before you can put the ceiling and the walls up, you have to run the wiring, and most of my wiring really just runs next to like the kitchen walls. I don't have anything on the other side, and that made it a little bit easier. When I first built the van with my dad, we didn't know how to efficiently put up the least amount of panels, so we just cut up pieces and then I used wood putty to cover up all the seams. And while it wasn't really noticeable, like especially in photos, I noticed it, and it actually kind of cracked after some time with the vibrations of the van. So this time I actually took the time cutting those larger pieces and making templates that way that it would fit perfectly. And while it did take a lot of back and forth, I had to like go in and out of the van measuring and doing that over and over to make sure I got the right size. For my ceiling, I wanted to save money and not use tongue and groove, so instead I took a 1/4 inch thick 4x8 piece of plywood and cut it down into 4-inch strips. The 1/4 inch plywood is potentially the best kind of plywood you could get because it's still flexible enough to follow the contours of the van and like bend when you're screwing it in. Alright friends, so as you can see, I started doing work on the sun's very, very bright. I started doing work on the ceiling, and I've already done a single coat of poly, but now I need to sand it so I can do the second coat. I didn't think it would be that gritty, but it's like really gritty, so I'm taking a really fine sandpaper and just gonna sand those down. Let's do that now. After my sanding mistake, I used a water-based glossy polyurethane. I did 2 coats on the bottom to protect it just in case I had any more leaks, even though I really tried my best not to. Then I did 4 coats on the stained side to make it look super shiny. In the last video, you saw me glue the furring strips to the ceiling, so now I had to cut the insulation and glue it down again. Last time I used 3M spray adhesive, but it didn't work so well on the textured fiberglass ceiling. So this time I use Gorilla Glue, and that's pretty much my go-to construction adhesive throughout the build. It's extremely strong. The clear kind tends to be a little bit more like runny and it takes a little longer to set, but the white kind is what I would recommend if it's in places that you can't see because it cures really quickly. Like it's thicker, so you can like it'll hold onto something much faster. And now enjoy a little insightful rant about van build timelines. When I was doing my van build and planning out, like the first time around, and was figuring out when I was supposed to do something and like watching all these videos, like everyone seems to make videos in a very like organized way. Like it's all you do all the wiring, all of the installation, all of this, and they make it very step by step, but that isn't really how it happens. You kind of just try to do things when you can, especially if you're in a place where maybe it's not consistent weather, if it's a weird season or things like that. Like weather happens, and sometimes most people don't have garages that you can just work on like one part of it. And this is my daily driver, so I needed to like button certain things up to be able to get materials and pause other things. And And then now especially, you have to wait for material. So I haven't been able to take this out yet because I'm still waiting on this tool. Hopefully it'll probably come tomorrow. So I might finally take this out. But you just never know when something is actually going to be delivered. And that's a really hard lesson to learn. But I just wanted to say that, like, if your van build is not looking like it's on the same timeline as what most people do, that's completely okay, because it's whatever works for your schedule, whatever order works best for your build, then it's exactly what it was meant to be. Now, to finish the last wall, I created a template for the window because it was a weird shape, as in, like, it's not square, it's kind of like a funny little trapezoidal shape. And if you can get help for the walls, I would recommend that. It's not easy doing that yourself. You have to push into the curve while you're screwing it, and this can lead to the lines that were once perfect now becoming uneven because you're both having to hold it in and press and screwing it in. Wiring the ceiling was next. I struggled with deciding on the location for the lights because I knew I'd only need 3 lights, and my layout made the lighting choices a little bit more difficult than it needed to be. Usually it can be a little bit more symmetrical, but with mine, it's not completely symmetrical. Once I wired where the lights would be, I started cutting the planks down. I didn't have to think about the same things you do with tongue and groove, so I started in the middle and marked where the hole for the light would be. After my practice round, I knew the best way to cut it would be to start on the back and then finish on the front. Because of how thin the 1/4 inch plywood is, and also the thickness of the furring strips, I made sure to drill pilot holes because I assumed that the wood would have split if I didn't do that. Thank you for watching the second episode of the Rebuild series. I'm trying to keep these as short as possible while still providing enough helpful information when I think things might be kind of helpful. There's lots of information on YouTube, but if you are building out a van like mine, sometimes it can be hard to find the kind of similar information that you're looking for. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one, and I'll see you next time. Oh, hi. Drop it. You're breaking it. I don't know what you want. Drop it. Are you just eating it? Okay.